Vennligst reis opp.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you here. And welcome to this public defense of the thesis entitled Understanding Ironic Performance Breakdown Under Pressure, Unwanted Thoughts, Cognitive Task Load, and Shooting Performance, Implication for Elite Athletes, the public defense for Khelifa Bartura. And today's candidate, Khelifa, completed his thesis in February 2025. And based on a proposal from the Department of Sport and Social Sciences and the Committee for Research Education has appointed the following committee to judge the thesis and other requirements for the award. The leader of the committee, the chairperson, associate professor, and pro-rector, Liv Luteberge. First opponent, Greg Wood, Manchester Metropolitan University, UK. Second opponent, Professor Tommy Haugen, University of Agder, Norway. You're all most welcome. The committee has concluded that the thesis meets the standard worth a public defense for the award of Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Sport Science. Earlier today, the candidate has given a trial lecture with the title, it's a long title, Heart Rate Variability and Performance Under Pressure, Neurophysiological Mechanisms, Theoretical Frameworks, Methodological Approaches, and Applications in High-Stakes Environments. And the trial lecture has been found satisfactory by the examination committee. And I would now like to ask the candidate to introduce his doctoral research in the form of a short lecture, and the opposing members of the examination committee to engage the candidate in a defense of the work. Should members of the audience wish to ask questions relating to the research, I ask you to bring this in written form to the attention to me in the break prior to the second opponent's questions. We will have a break at about 15 minutes between the first and the second opponent. Now we ask Khelifa to come up here and give us a short lecture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being here today, and it's a pleasure to share my work with you. And I'm excited to walk you through the key insights we have uncovered. And here is how we structure our journey. So without taking too much, let's dive in. And let me give you a context. Imagine telling yourself, do not forget your keys as you leave the house in the morning to catch the morning train or bus. You know, guess what? That is the fastest way to lock them inside. And the idea is, the harder you push a thought away, it echoes stronger, and suppressing unwanted thoughts, it backfires sometimes. And let's explore how and why our brain loves to rebel. And let's watch a short clip. And this information we got 18 years after this incident happened. Some of you might not be born this time. And Baggio himself wrote this in his autobiography. And for those people who don't know, Claudio Taffarel, he was known for his ability to save penalties. And without a delay, let's play this one.
Brazilian simply has to score himself, and Brazil win the World Cup. So the pendulum has swung.
This is a very decisive
wildly against Italy
kick,
now.
and he's processing unwanted thoughts.
The saviour of Italy throughout this tournament. He's missed it!
So, when you fail under this high-stake environment while processing unwanted thoughts, that phenomenon is called ironic errors. And this phenomenon, because why they call it ironic error? Because people ironically do precisely the opposite of what they intended to do. And this phenomenon is explained by ironic process of mental control theory developed by the late Daniel Wegner. And according to this theory, mental control can be achieved through the interplay between two hypothetical but competing processes, the operating and the monitor. The operating process works to maintain our desired goal, whereas the monitoring process scans for unwanted thoughts, mistakes, errors that threatens the mental control. Together, they shape the mental control. But sometimes their battle backfires and makes us to make ironic error, such as thinking, don't miss the shot, making us shoot the miss. And the mechanism is, according to Wegner, under normal circumstances, mental control is successful. But when the cognitive resource is depleted by cognitive load or emotional stresses, such as anxiety, or emotional load, such as anxiety, worry, frustration, then suppressing unwanted thoughts increases the activity of the monitoring process. And this, while suppressing unwanted thoughts under these circumstances, or making the operating process to engage in the very thoughts, and that decreases the efficiency of the operating system. That is the main or the conscious mind, and that gives us ironic error. And in a simple way, Wegner and colleagues give us a very clear explanation. Ironic errors occur because the mental process that monitors errors, who monitors the error? The monitoring process can itself produce them. While this Wegner's ironic process theory has a potential to provide explanation for why athletes fail when the stakes are high, but it is rarely discussed in the pressure performance literature. This is because for the past 4 decades, the research has been, or they have been focused on the self-focus based models and ignoring other alternative models. And there are also reservations, like scholars shows reservations about the theory regarding its contribution to the field and how to empirically test it and its prevalence to elite athletes. Despite plethora or numerous research that has provided explanation why top athletes fail under pressure, still scholars argue that there is still a lack of consensus which model precisely explains why athletes choke or why athletes fail under pressure. And there is an increased research interest in ironic process of mental motor task performance since 2015. But these studies, there has been no research that summarizes the methodological quality of these studies. Of course, there is one study, but that is in Japanese language. So we embarked on a journey to systematically review the existing evidence of ironic effects of motor control in study 1. And the main research question dissected into more manageable research questions. And we followed a reporting, systematic review reporting guidelines, including we registered the protocol, and it involved a thorough review process, including we appraised the methodological quality using the mixed method appraisal tool, and we synthesized the evidence using p-value, synthesis without meta-analysis, and narrative approach. The results, after a comprehensive screening procedure, 17 articles were eligible, which yielded 24 separate studies. And characteristically, most studies used novice participants, and in terms of motor tasks, they used perceptual motor tasks, the majority, and in terms of research methods, they used quasi-experimental between within subject factor designs. And the studies resulted in they were diverse in terms of pressure manipulation, measurements, even aims or objectives. So we classified into 2 groups based on the pressure manipulation techniques they used. And the first one is the anxiety-based studies, and these studies manipulated high anxiety conditions using financial incentives along with avoidant instruction or ego depletion or social evaluation. And the second group is a dual task based, which they manipulated high cognitive load using mental arithmetic, such as rehearsing a digit number with avoidant instruction. In terms of performance measures, the anxiety-based studies measured performance distinguishing ironic, non-ironic errors, whereas the dual task-based measured performance using desired or undesired actions. And the anxiety-based studies, they checked their manipulation, the pressure manipulation, using both subjective and objective measures. And whereas we have 3 studies that also checked their manipulation using eye tracking glasses from the dual task based. Most of the studies manipulated or conducted their experiments in the lab setting, and 7 studies reported in field-based studies. And 22 studies focused on the mechanism of ironic error, whereas only 2 studies focused on how to mitigate ironic errors. So the overall discussion shows that there is a strong support for Wagner's PT, but there is a contradiction from the anxiety-based studies. Highly experienced volleyball players performed non-ironically, and here from the dual task-based, there is a conflicting hypothesis with ironic error theory, such as the overcompensating error. Let's say when participants were instructed do not put the golf ball short, participants tended to shot the ball long. That phenomenon is, that phenomenon is called overcompensating error. And one study also provided support for ironic error theory or ironic hypothesis, but under low cognitive load instead of high. So in terms of sample, most of the studies used or involved novices, and you have seen the disproportion between quasi and true experimental, but the included quasi-experimental studies had two limitations. One is selection bias from volunteer-based sampling and confounding factors, and the true experimental studies had also two shortcomings, one unclear randomization procedure and lack of allocation concealments. In terms of effectiveness of manipulation, the anxiety-based studies, they reported or they effectively checked their success of their manipulation success, whereas the dual task-based, they failed to check their manipulation success. So where is the gap in the literature? There is a conceptual issue, especially the dual task-based, which is crucial for my dissertation, because this is where the contradiction lies on. So one is, and one crucial element is they lack tracking non-ironic error or measuring, that is, or conceptualizing non-ironic error. And also, it's a general one, but there is confusing to use terms interchangeably. And there are methodological issues such as not taking the manipulative variable as a factor into their analysis. We will come to that in a discussion. And there are also issues or lack of elite athlete data. And there is a lack of manipulation checks, pre and post test checks, and ecological validity issues with respect to motor task and cognitive load manipulation. And there is a lack of intervention studies. So to address these issues, we conducted 3 separate experiments. So this study 2 and study 3 experiment 2 focused on the mechanism of ironic error, whereas the third study experiment 1 focused on the attentional cue with whether it mitigates ironic error or not, but this one is how negative cues or negative information instruction with cognitive load and irrespective of cognitive load. And these are the research questions. So we were lucky to have access to the Norwegian elite sport academy from Yale, use elite athletes between 16 to 18 years. And we used a quasi-experimental within subject design. The condition has, for the second study, has low frequency negative, high frequency negative, but for the study 3, both experiments, experiment 1, experiment 2, we induced pressure, artificial pressure using low and high cognitive load. And cognitive task has 2 levels, congruent, incongruent in a stripped inspired task. I will come to that in a minute. And performance has 3 levels, target, ironic error, non-ironic error. And we measured also performance using reaction time. And we use this, adopted from Gregwood, study 2016, and we use the real rifle shooting from 50 meters in indoor shooting range in NTG or Yale indoor shooting service, and we conceptualized ironic, non-ironic, and target. We will come to that in, we will develop it through discussion, but because I have a lot to cover. And the experimental procedure, before we took a baseline heart rate variability, and also we administered the threat anxiety using the sport anxiety scale Norwegian, and color blindness, green, red, color blindness using Ishihara 24 plates. And during, in study 2, participants had 2 trial blocks. And in the first block, we gave them only don't shoot blue example. and shoot as quickly as possible because a stimulus can disappear in 2 seconds. And we administered the instruction manipulation check, and again administered the state anxiety scale mental readiness form. And they shot 20 shots here, and their heart rate variability data, cardiac data, continuously recorded. And then post-trial, we administered the NASA workload, subjective workload survey, and we gave them 5 minutes break here and to refill even the magazine for the next trial. And for the second trial, the same procedure, but we displayed, or we just gave them the instruction before each incongruent stimulus visually. Because to give you an idea, we tested them in indoor shooting, so we all have a headset, or what I call it, the earmuff. So that's the thing, we display the instructions visually. And for the second and the third study for experiment 2, we gave them 12 practice shots. Especially this was to familiarize them with the scoring system. There is a punishment and there is a reward with shooting the right target and shooting the wrong target. And then for the cognitive load, for the negative instructions priming, we gave don't shoot blue for the study experiment 2, and for the experiment 1, or the attentional cue, we said ignore. We just swapped from don't shoot blue to ignore blue. And the same procedure we used with study 2, and under high cognitive load condition, we manipulated high cognitive load condition in this experiment 1 and experiment 2, using creating a competitive environment. We said there are 35 biathletes who compete, and those people who got first will receive a financial incentive. And we also recorded their video filming using 4K, and we said to them that your performance accuracy will be evaluated by your coach, and this will affect your participation in the upcoming national or international competitions, and then social and ego-threatening manipulations. And then post-test survey, and we thanked them, and that's the end of the experiment. And the results. Performance, as you see in the study 2, high accuracy shooting with 0 ironic error. And in the third study, both experiments with a minimal or negligible ironic error and with high shooting accuracy. In terms of response time, we have not statistically significant, but there is 45 minutes, descriptively 45 millisecond delay under high frequency negative Q condition, whereas we found main effect for conditions statistically significant, but in the absence of interaction effect, 60 milliseconds. And for the intervention study, even though it's not statistically significant, but we found 12 millisecond delay under high cognitive load. And the post-trial workload, none of them reached to significance, but interestingly, they perceived the task was mentally demanding in all 3 experiments, and they invested here. Okay, I mean, increased effort was here, but it is really surprising they have a decreased effort here. We will come to that in the discussion, and there is an equal level of effort in the intervention study. But surprisingly, the frustration, despite they have high accuracy of performance, target performance, the frustration level is interesting for discussion. And then when we evaluate the manipulation, our manipulation was not successful in the first. That means that we will discuss that one later. And here, as we proposed it aligns with our hypothesis, and the cognitive anxiety, they had an increase in high cognitive anxiety under high cognitive load condition, but in the absence of objective measures. The heart rate variability didn't change across conditions. And here, there is also, we found during the intervention study, we found also significant cognitive anxiety, but this one is confounded by the trait anxiety. We will discuss that one later. And the post-test survey showed that the instructions were clear, and they followed the instruction diligently, and they didn't lose focus, and the task was interesting, and the task was not boring, and it was rather interesting. And the results could be explained from the expertise, the participants' expertise. And I'm not gonna, because of the time, I'm not, the most relevant ones are, I'll discuss three. One is their ability in mastering multiple demands because of their training for a long hour from early age, and competition experience as well. It gives them that resilience to not to be prone for ironic error. And the research shows that also they are very good at suppressing task-irrelevant cues, and they are highly focused on task-relevant cues. So they have high focus ability, and we have checked that one through the post-test survey, and their ability to stabilize their psychophysiological stability. That is because they have been trained one brace per shot. So this bracing, we'll discuss that one. So that gives them more calmness in the face of high pressure situations. You know, there are hundreds of studies that supports ego depletion, financial incentive, video tapping. They are ecological stressors. But, and it's our participants, they hold strong. And effort is a key factor because according to the cognitive load theory, effort is the most reliable estimator of cognitive load. So that means the higher the effort under cognitive load, it enhances focus to the task-relevant cues, and that increases motor performance by decreasing distraction. And we have found 2.5%, 8%, and 5% respectively across studies, non-ironic error shots, but they are not significant. This supports Wagner's theory, but these shots also, they could hold significance, especially during critical moments. The task itself, compared to rehearsing a digit number or a mental arithmetic, it has two important cognitive skills, such as selective attention and conflict resolution. And these skills mirror high-pressure decision-making in competitions and emergencies where focus and quick adaptive thinking are crucial. And in terms of the task, maybe the priming, the activation of the negative cues frequently, and the duration, like 2,000 milliseconds, we just put the cues 2,000 milliseconds before a stimulus. That provided or gave them an advantage, including visually, because they are very good at visual detection. So, but research says visual presentation of instructional cues enhances cognitive assimilation and leading to cognitive processing, effective informational influences that cause true cognitive change. But our studies, our experiments are not, they have limitations. For example, the sample size, 10, 10, 10, it's very difficult to make generalization, even though we used Bayesian statistics to address this, but future study needs to collect more data from heterogeneous, because we collected from a homogeneous group. And the design itself, even though we counterbalance the cognitive task, that is a Stroop task, but our conditions were fixed that could result in performance bias, performance effect bias, or learning effect. And we tested 15 meters as compared to they usually shoot from 50 meters. And we tested, like in a different setup, and future studies should consider this. And of course, care must be taken when we interpret the data, especially the data collected from the subjective social evaluation because of the social desirability biases. And then priorities, future studies should involve emotional integration instead of simply giving don't shoot this, but they should feel it, that information. And Q-valence, for example, neutral, negative, positive, and priming every single time or without priming, there is a potential. And task difficulty gradients, not difficult, average, high difficult. And still there is, ironic error or ironic process theory should be tested in a real-world settings or setting, and more preferentially, if we continue to explore more in the lab situation or settings, then we need a randomized controlled trial. And the conclusion and some takeaways. Sorry. So IPT from still, it has shaky methodologies, even though it has promises. But from our first study, there is, from our systematic review, when you give instruction under negative instruction under cognitive load, the likelihood of ironic error is there. And even two of the studies, they assert that ironic errors are a good source of choking, which is egregious error when the stakes are high. And from study 2 and study 3, experiment 2, we can draw a conclusion. Instead of viewing suppression as a trigger factor for ironic error, we should look at it as an effective mental control strategy. And from the third study, experiment 1 from our intervention study, whether you are an athlete, a coach, or mental performance consultant, or even a GP, the way you give instruction matters. Always choose positive over negatives. And still, as I told you, there is a shaky, it's shaky, the ironic error studies or research because of the over-reliance of lab tasks, and this could affect the generalizability of the studies. And still there is theoretical confusion between what the ironic and overcompensation error. And still there is a room for revisiting ironic error theory, especially when it comes to elite athletes. And there is a lack of study in qualitative studies, particularly even including philosophical approaches. So the point that I will leave you is I'm done, and ironic errors are not just a struggle for athletes. They haunt anyone under pressure, from Baggio's silent battle to an amateur player's panic thought like this. This is real. And we see how don't miss becomes the very reason they do. But this isn't just about sport. Surgeons, firefighters, soldiers, CEOs all face the same trap. The harder they try to avoid failure, the more likely it strikes. If we ignore this mental quirk, we risk failure where stakes are highest. The lesson? Performance is it's not just about skill, but it's about mastering your mind. And if you are interested, I have written a blog in our university, Don't Think of Pink Elephant, in Norwegian. And I was so amazed the level of depth and sharpness the Swiss main magazine, how they analyzed or discussed ironic error by mentioning our first study. And it's a very, I spent almost 4 or 5 years of study, PhD, in ironic process, but this is, so I wish, it's a good look, a good way to read. And these are our publications. And I ask all of you here to spread the message, and people will benefit. These are open access, all. Much appreciated, my supervisors, for your patience and support, amazing journey. And our collaborators, and Einar, he finished his master last year. Oh, this year? Last year, yeah. But without him, this project wouldn't be possible. And Daniela, our support. And Yailo and our athletes, the biathletes who participated. And during briefing, they shared their reflection was amazing. And of course, my university, especially the Institutt, for the financial support and for the training or for this journey. And the Irland Norway University for covering our expenses for open access, some of. And of course, we need to, I really appreciate the unknown reviewers and associate editors who gave me insightful comments to improve or this journey generally. It's amazing, and thank you.
Thank you, Khelifa. And now we'll ask Greg Wood, the first opponent, to start a discussion with Khelifa. Welcome up.
Okay. Okay, nice presentation, Khelifa. Good afternoon. Just like to say, it's a pleasure to be your first opponent today. It's a pleasure to read your thesis, which I think was put together very nicely. It's also a pleasure to visit a wonderful city of Oslo and to be at a really picturesque university. What I'm hoping from this is my first time I've ever been a first opponent in a ceremony like this. Oh. Yeah, I've done plenty in the UK, but not many in Europe, so I really like the ceremony. And what I'm hoping is for a friendly but critical discussion here, and what I intend to do throughout my assessment and our discussion is to really focus and drill down on some of the theoretical aspects of ironic processing. Mm. And I have a few methodological questions towards the end. Okay. But before we do get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's worth saying congratulations.
Thank you.
Firstly, getting this far. Many of us in the room have done a PhD. We know how hard it is, how stressful. It's an emotional roller coaster. Things can happen like COVID and other things that can happen, which I know has affected your PhD. And so I think it's worthy of you should be proud of yourself to show the adaptability and resilience to kind of go through that process. So firstly, congratulations on that one. Secondly, congratulations on putting together a thesis that I think is clear and logical. I think it's well written and structured, and I think you show good experimental rigor, and you show critical thinking, which I think is really, really important. And obviously, you've made a contribution to the literature in this area with 2 publications, and it seems 1 on the way. So congratulations on that. It's a significant achievement. Okay, so we'll start at the start. 4 or 5 years ago, you just mentioned. Why did you want to do a PhD? What was your motivation behind wanting to study
It's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, my background is, it starts, it goes back to my background. Like, my first master is in physiotherapy and sports science, and I did my sports psychology, exercise psychology, second master. And during that, especially in Leipzig, in Germany, I have seen, we were in lab situation, in lab class with Robert Weinberg. And it was on attentional control. And we performed poor in Vienna test, cognitive task. And that was striking, and it gave me kind of drive. This I need to test it in myself, and even with especially top level of athletes. So it starts from that journey, and of course the main motivation is to grow academically, and it's a personal goal to grow up and in academic environment, yeah.
Okay, and then more specifically, why ironic processing? What was it about the subject that appeals to you?
Yeah, to back it up again, in that test, in Robert Wagner's test, we were put into pressure, like time pressure, and that's why we did the worst than the average person. But that is one, but the other one is ironic process it's a very complex topic, as you might know, and I can't say we have only now, including myself, it's only 3 dissertations, all through from 1994 up to now. And when I dig into the performance under pressure literature, it was not given that much attention, as it deserves.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the self-focused and the distraction-based theories, they have massive research and attentions. And I said, why? Of course, you can't say I'm biased.
Yeah.
It's okay, let me check what's going on.
Okay.
Why it is ignored from the mainstream sport or performance psychology? Why?
Yeah.
So that is the main reason.
Okay, and perfectly fits into my next question then. This is not scripted, guys. This is natural. This is the next question then. You tell me why, because I totally agree with you. Compared to more research, self-focused, and distraction theories, which we're going to get into as we move forward, why is that? Why is it a paucity of research on something that seems a little bit intuitive?
It's a very, very good question. Thank you for bringing that. It's because, there is, the first thing I can say, it's common in the research world to favor, one theory over the other. So favoritism is one aspect from my perspective, at least. So for the past, as I said earlier, for the past 4 decades, the research was dominant. The self-focused was very dominant. And in the self-focused based theories, they didn't consider, or they took out the role of unconscious mind on performance. They were focusing only on the conscious one, self-conscious. This could be one. And the other thing is, it's because of, as I said, in the first empirical study that was published is 1998 in motor task performance in in using Wegener's theory. Shortly after, like it was 1998, but 1999, Janelle, from Christopher from America, and Louis Hardy, they have criticized the theory itself, and they showed reservation. And this impacted the upcoming researchers who show interest. Oh, okay, these are big names. They criticize this theory, so it impacts the progress somehow.
Okay.
And the other things, like when I read this area, it is a kind of a social psychology aspect. It has a social, the theory is developed from a social construct, I can say, like don't smoke, don't drink, or don't do this. Most of them, especially in the mainstream psychology, it is more socially constructed. The research were focused on socially constructed. So maybe it doesn't have some kind of relevance to our field. I think, like they have valid points, big names, even including Tim Woodman, like they came afterwards, So I think these are the main reasons why they didn't give it attention. And more importantly, now I understand at this point the reservation, particularly the prevalence rate among top elite athletes, is not that big. And they said it, Tim Woodman, even Wegener himself, it's more prevalent for novices than experts. Okay. So they are just, giving it less attention in that sense also.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense?
Yes, good answer. And I agree with many of the points that you made there. Yeah. I think there might be two other methodological reasons why, which I'm going to kind of come on to in a second, and I'm going to get your opinion and your thoughts and opinions on my criticism of the theory from two aspects. Okay, so in your thesis, you present on when you're talking about choking under pressure, you present these theories as mutually present ironic processing as mutually exclusive from these two. Okay. You say that, we've got self-focused theories, we've got distraction theories over here. So distraction theories, when you're really anxious, you're not focusing on what you should be focusing on. You can be distracted by things in the environment more easily or in your head more easily, right? And because you're focusing on them things, you're missing task-relevant information and performance breaks down. Self-focused theories, when you're anxious, inward focus of attention, you're focused on things potentially that you shouldn't be focusing on, like automatic processes, how to move and stuff like that, because experts don't think about how they're moving. So when they're anxious, ironically, they start thinking about what they're doing, and that regresses them back to an earlier stage of learning, and performance errors come in, right? Now, I think that what you present, or what ironic processing studies present, can be explained from both a distraction and a self-focused theory. And I think one of the problems in this area, which we're going to get onto in a second, is there's a lack of there's a lack of explanatory power in ironic processing theories. And I'm going to give you one example. Okay. We'll start with attentional control theory, right? So attentional control theory basically says when you're anxious, you can't inhibit. Your inhibition function is diminished and you become distractible because you can't inhibit them distractions. And them distractions might be don't miss or don't hit left. It could be that, right? So in that context, your ability to kind of not focus on them ironic instructions or worries, or it might be a goalkeeper distracting you in the outside world, prevents you from kind of focusing on what you should be focusing on. So in this context, the monitoring is relatively automatic and requires few resources. So when attentional control is reduced by distraction through reduced inhibition, the monitoring process dominates. And what we get in the end, is in this example, is an ACT explanation of what you're kind of producing. So instead of suppressing unwanted thoughts and actions, the attentional system becomes biased by them. And I think there is some literature, I think you've got this in your thesis, that supports an attentional control theory explanation, okay? And you probably know this study very, very well. So in this study, they had participants shooting to a screen and penalty kicks, and they were given instructions either to be as accurately as possible, to not look at the goalkeeper, which is the ironic instructions, obviously, or to make sure that they shoot it to the open space. And what you can see here is where the people looked. So you can see, and what we're really interested in, when they were told to not look at the goalkeeper, they had an attentional bias to the goalkeeper. So these instructions impaired attention, made them more stimulus-driven, so they were more focused on the threat of the goalkeeper when they were told not to, and that biased attention. And because they were focusing on the goalkeeper, they spent relatively less time looking at the open space. So they weren't getting that target-related information so that they couldn't then process an accurate movement response in terms of a penalty kick. So I want to know what you think of ACT as an explanation of this, and how would you critique my explanation based on ACT? I know this is a toughie.
I totally agree, and you explained it very well, and it's very critical. But you're right. I could have merged the ironic process theory with the self-focused and the distraction. But the problem with that is even Tim Woodman, Recep, and even Olaf Bincha, they didn't even dare to consolidate this or put it into either in the distraction-based. For example, the only paper we have, or the only literature that we have, is Rob Gray from, he just classified it into the distraction-based Wegener's theory. But the problem is, in terms of, according to Wegener, it is not about the distraction that matters. It is the distraction with the thought. It's a thought process, not even, like there is a discussion with Moran, Ida Moran, even he puts it, the internal distraction. That is the thoughts and the suppression of this negative thought that matters. And according to Wegener, that controllability of the unwanted thoughts are the most crucial factor than, for example, distracting with, any other. Of course, it impacts, a slight distraction. So to come to your point, they don't look different, literally. The self-focused, when you focus to
We're going to get onto the self-focused explanation in a second, but this is a distraction.
Yeah, it is a distraction, but we are not sure whether they are distracted from the thought process or from other distractions, for example.
What do you mean by the thought process?
Like the negative thoughts, like, for example,
unwanted
thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, unwanted thoughts are the most important thing.
ACT would say that the negative thoughts bias attention.
Yeah,
so in my studies, for example, on ACT, looking at penalty kicks, where they say, don't look at the goalkeeper because he'll see where I'm looking, or the goalkeeper's the threat in the environment, so they just, ironically, they tend to look at the goalkeeper more. So what I'm saying is, these instructions bias attention in a manner, or these thoughts bias attention in a manner that seems to me to be better explained by ACT than ironic processing.
It could be.
And we can measure.
It's plausible. Yeah.
And with ACT, we can actually measure the effects because we've got eye tracking data with predictions to say if these effects are an ACT prediction, we should see an attentional bias toward the goalkeeper, and we do. So more stimulus-driven attentional control and less goal-directed attentional control, and poorer shooting as a consequence.
I think, I totally agree. I have no, that's true, but conceptually, this, taking you to the ironic process, still, whether they do, that is caused by processing unwanted thoughts under pressure condition, or, others, still, it's unclear.
Yeah, it is unclear.
It's
okay.
unclear, and especially to give you maybe this theory, ironic process of mental control theory, is also the foundation is not even in the destruction, but they have Miller, 1916, and there are other two theories. I mentioned it in my dissertation. So it is different than the destruction based theories, like you mentioned. But I agree it can be explained from the attentional control perspective that could distract them. But there are conceptual issues, I think.
Okay. Okay, this might be a bit tricky, and I'm not expecting it. Okay. How then do you think you could design an experiment that would differentiate and say, okay, no, this is not attentional control theory, this is ironic processing?
That's a very good question. First, we need to conceptualize what is ironic and what is non-ironic. That is the most distinguishing or the most important thing that we criticized in the systematic review, maybe you might be aware of. So without that, then it is very difficult to move, because even Wegener himself, in 1993, they clearly defined what is target, what is ironic, and what is non-ironic. But they failed in 1998's first paper in motor performance. They ignored. It's a methodological choice. They didn't even measure non-ironic. And from my perspective, I mean, it might be bold to make this, but the non-ironic, by measuring the non-ironic error, then we can conceptualize even the choking like this, not like this, but we can conceptualize the choking effect, because ironic is a very specific type of error.
Okay, we're going to get back.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on. So also, reinvestment is an explanation. So reinvestment is consciously monitoring and controlling movements, trying to and when the pressure's on, I don't want to mess up, so I'm going to start thinking about how I'm moving. When you start thinking about that, things break down. So there's a little example there about how this could fit into reinvestment. So reinvestment theory could explain ironic effects because they involve excessive conscious monitoring or movement control. So under pressure or distraction, performers reinvest in these explicit knowledges, and this makes actions and poor performance more likely, right? And you give a nice example in your thesis. So you say, you talk about a shooter attempting to control their hands and shaking. So, and that sounds very ironic processing-ish, but it could easily apply to self-focus theory. So my hands are shaking. So you divert attention to try to control your hands, which ironically makes them more shaky. And the researchers, there's much more research on that effect and that explanation, as you rightly say, that would suggest that type of thing is more to do with self-focused attention and internalized attention. So what would be your counter to that one?
I totally agree again.
I think this one's more aligned to.
I mean, again, like these two, the one that you mentioned, attention control theory and reinvestment theory, these are the perfect alignment with Wegener's ironic process theory. We can fit them, but theoretically it doesn't allow us. There is what is a bridge because of the foundation. But there is one study, that's a great study in 2017, Rob and Tim Woodman, in using the integrated approach of ironic process and the reinvestment in baseball.
Yeah.
That gives us the evidence
I think
supporting your claim. And I mean, we need to wait and see more research. This kind of innovative research should come to consolidate, okay, now it's time, we need to fit ironic process error into the distraction-based.
Or otherwise. I think that would make sense for a number of reasons. Firstly, conceptually, there's much more evidence for either of the theories.
Yeah. And for example, Tim Woodman in 2015 paper, he claimed, or they said that ironic error is not that different from the self-conscious or the distraction-based.
Yeah.
That's Tim Woodman.
And
He's
the
the expert in this. So
so are you.
Yeah, but the thing is, I didn't dare because of that thin line in the grounding. I wish, Daniel Wegner, had he lived, maybe he could have given us, okay, or maybe we do it in a wrong way. Who knows?
Or maybe that's
maybe in a good way.
The next few years, as a researcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think there is scope for alignment here, and to somehow integrate these theories in some way. I don't know what that would look like, but I think this is part one of why I think ironic processing theory and research has been stagnated, because I don't think conceptually it is strong and theoretically it is strong. And it's also almost like a chicken and egg, because there's no research, so it doesn't get, it's that type of approach. So I think integration would be something that you should potentially focus on moving forward.
I totally agree. And they came up recently from Liverpool. There is a study, they developed a model when we study the choking under pressure or in a high-stake environment, they tested the integrated model. So maybe we need to move to that direction. It's very important. Then we can have comprehensive theoretical explanations. For example, we can give, this kind of error, when it is associated with processing unwanted thought, that's the specific type of error, whereas when you lose motivation and when you perform poor, despite you have a potential, and that is choking.
Yeah.
Unless we have that integrated or comprehensive, high-quality, rigorous, using rigorous methodologies, then it's useless.
Yeah. And I think one unique aspect of ironic processing is, like the rest of the theories say performance will break down, you'll miss. Ironic processing gives a direction somehow. You'll miss in this manner, which is something worth considering. So I think that's one theoretical kind of answer to why I think, and I agree with you, why ironic processing hasn't been kind of researched as much. The second and the final one is because I think it lacks any mechanistic power in terms of what's actually going on. So in terms of attentional control theory, like I've already said, anxiety buys attention, you're not focusing on what you're doing. So if you're a football penalty taker, you're worried about the goalkeeper in his aspects, you're looking at the goalkeeper, and because you're doing that, you're not looking at where you should be aiming. If you look at where you're going to aim, you're going to be better. You're providing the brain with visual information on which to program a movement. So when things go wrong, we can measure where people are looking, we can measure distraction, and we can look at how anxiety affects performance that is mediated by attention. Because we know that anxiety affects attention, attention affects performance. And we can measure that in ACT. Similarly, but not probably as robust, self-focused theories, when you start trying to control your automatic movement responses, if you're an expert, movements become jerky. And we can measure that with kinematics. Yeah. My question and challenge to you is to explain how ironic errors affect performance outcome in a mechanistic kind of way. And how would we measure that?
That's a very critical question, and I love it. Especially mechanistically, we have, the monitoring and the operating process. that is the challenge, because these are the hypothetical,
Yeah.
and it is it's in a metaphysics area that you can't test it, even with the brain technology like ECG or EEG or. But what we can is, and it's a kind of dodgy to interpret, for example, this is ironic, so the monitoring process has impact during pressure, so that give them, or that rises ironic error.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
That's very, so what your explanation is not mechanistic, it's descriptive.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And from the ironic process theory, there are 3 preconditions for the ironic process to happen. The first one is controllability of the thoughts, unwanted thoughts. What I see is we give them some kind of instruction, don't, and still we don't know whether they control it or not. And the other thing is the balance between the monitoring and the operating process, like the battle. How can we measure that mechanistically?
Yeah.
That's why my point is reinvestment theory and attentional control theory, these are even, they can give us, of course, a precise mechanism why athletes fail under pressure. We can measure it in a lab situation or in, but in the ironic, it's very complex. That's why we conceptualize athletes for now, when they should, don't shoot this, and when they shoot that, that is ironic and non-ironic.
Yeah.
That is the only way we can measure ironic process.
It's almost like the outcome's the mechanism, which is problematic.
It's
'cause it can't be
very,
that.
very, very problematic. I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's very tough. I mean, it's the two processes in a mind and how you can measure them.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But it doesn't mean that the theory is invalid. It has a lot to give. It's very comprehensive, and it can complement the other theories.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah, I, in your thesis, I don't think that come across very well. I think it was like, this is self-focused, this is fashion art, but I'm focusing on this one over here.
I was a bit hard.
Yeah.
In the thesis, yeah. That is, I was like, oh, this theory it has been neglected so far, so I was like emotional.
Yeah.
I was biased.
Yeah.
But, now, I mean, because this is a public defense, of course, but it has a potential to provide explanation, at least.
I would say describe.
It can describe, but the thing is, Baggio, for example, in 1994, we didn't get that information before. And how you test that one in a competitive setting, in high-pressure decisive. But we got that information even, how many years ago?
Yeah.
That means it has a good application. It's a good way of applying this theory into practice. But I totally agree, mechanistically still, it needs, more to do.
Yeah, definitely.
I wish, if that's my capacity, someone comes and, criticizes and, give us a different kind of mechanism. But it's very complex.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this makes it worse. Okay, so you got the iconic errors, right? And then you've got compensation errors, right? So in your thesis, you give an example of golf, I think, and I think you did in your talk as well, saying basically, if it don't hit it short and it lands too short, that's an ironic error. If it goes in, didn't choke. If it goes further, it's overcompensation. Doesn't this provide an unfalsifiable theory? Because if they miss long, they can explain it. If they miss short, ironic processing, if it goes in, they didn't choke. What circumstance and what performance would you say ironic processing then couldn't explain?
It's well, I mean, it depends on what's your research question and how you test it. But there is one study so far, from Florida State University, how the overcompensation and the ironic process or ironic errors they overlap in the mind using attentional imbalance model. But from my perspective, still, I don't have data, but there is one data recently from Japan, and Nakamoto and his colleagues, they conducted, for the first time, this is a very good development, it's 2024, a new research. Overcompensation errors were reserved only for golf playing tasks, because you have choice, like shooting longer or shooting shorter, making it short, or right or left.
Yeah.
When you have multiple choices. But it was in a golf save. Now they tested in tennis serving, and they conceptualized 9 conceptualization, near ironic error or near overcompensation error, and they found overcompensation error over ironic error. And this is a good sign, a good development. It's a welcoming thing to see how this conflicting hypothesis.
So you think you think it's conflicting?
It's a conflicting, but still, from my perspective, Wegener himself, when they tested the first golf research or experiment, they ignored the overcompensation, the long puts. That is a methodological error. So this is a good area.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it is conflicting, but still it gives us some insight.
Yeah. So you mentioned previously like golf, and then tennis. Is it just task specific?
It's task specific, of course, and for example, Malhotra in UK, I think in New Zealand, they conducted research in driving.
Yeah.
And they tested ironic error, but they found overcompensation. They drive, don't drive to the right, they found them to drive to the left.
Yeah.
So that's overcompensation. So it could be task specific and, of course, individual factors as well.
Okay. Next question is, you mentioned like the dual task aspect of this and then having ironic instructions. Is it the case that is this just dual task interference, or do you see like a unique mechanism of ironic instructions?
I mean, you are asking me from our experiment or a general one, like from a Stroop test, for example?
Yeah,
in case of Stroop test, yeah, it is an interference effect, especially when you are under high cognitive load condition.
Okay.
Especially when you have time pressure. So the interference effect is especially when you the distraction, which I don't want to use the word, but the distraction interferes your task relevant goal or cues. So that is and the mechanism that, at least from my research, is we tried, or I tried to see intention to control a thought, don't shoot, and then attention, where attention goes. So here it comes the interference, and then performance, action. in an internally valid task like Stroop. Olaf Binch, in his PhD, they took eye tracking or gaze behavior.
Yeah.
So they tested the intention, the attention, the fixation, and the performance. That's very objectively. So the mechanism in our case, dual task by itself is like, for example, memorizing or even Stroop task. It can, it has potential to detect ironic errors.
Yeah, but because they often emerge under high cognitive load, isn't it just the case that there's some kind of attentional exhaustion of attentional resources?
Yeah, it could happen.
What is it that ironic instructions or ironic thoughts? Is it unique, or is it just like they try and focus on two things at once and performance breaks down? What would be your counter to that? I think there is a good counter to that, but what would be your counter to that?
That is the problem where it lies, like unless we control, unless we check whether that interference is because of the don't or the mental fatigue.
Okay.
Or lack of interest, there are many things.
Yeah.
Then, like, that's why it looks like it is simple information.
Okay. I would defend...
But dual task, by itself, it's a cognitive load.
Okay.
On top of that, you add artificial cognitive loads, like money and,
Yeah.
So instead, like I think the other elements has more potential than the information itself or the don't effect. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the ironic instructions and intrusive thoughts of an ironic nature are a unique mechanism in this. And I think you can illustrate that because you predict where the direction of the error, whereas if it was just a dual task environment, we wouldn't know. They would generally make more errors under dual task, but would have no idea in what direction they would be, left or right, too far, too short. But I think ironic processing offers a unique mechanism in the dual task environment because you're actually predicting the direction of the errors. Okay. So you looked at expertise. And you said that this monitoring kind of process the monitoring is kind of automatic and outside of conscious attention. But we know that expertise is something that's acquired and learned, potentially explicit knowledge. So how does it fit with the idea of experts being better in these types of environments and being less susceptible to ironic errors? What is the relationship between expertise and the propensity for ironic errors?
So the idea is expertise has, as I explained, the two processes. The conscious mind its capacity is higher than the monitoring process because that is the one controlling our mind to be in a desirable state. So these participants have, or expertise have, higher cognitive resources, and they have also resilience in the face of high, even though there is a high pressure situation, still the operating process can work effectively. But when they give up, like, oh, I'm tired, or that internal sensation, or including even processing what's going to happen after, or after the shot, for example.
Is it true that experts have higher
cognitive capacity?
Is that true?
Yeah, because of the training and the experiences that they have.
Generally,
Not generally, but like it's individual based, of course. Like they are experts because they can perform the task optimally and effectively, and their decision making is very high. Even your paper in 2016, they have higher working memory capacity, and their perception to the threat is. It varies.
Okay.
So, I mean, the balance between this operating and monitoring process is, I think they have, even though they have, sorry to say, they have high capacity in terms of, for example, in our case, we didn't test working memory capacity, which is the most crucial factor in determining the relationship between the intended goal and ironic error. It's very crucial, and that should be tested, whether they have high cognitive capacity.
Okay,
so but most research they shows in 2007, and they have a capacity to tackle problems at least.
Is there any research on the individual susceptibility to ironic effects? There is research on that.
There is.
What kind of measures did they look at for that?
They tested two studies. One is repressors. They tested them subjectively. They said they are not anxious, but their cardiac data shows they are highly anxious. So repressors, they are more susceptible to.
This was
2008, Tim Woodman and Davies. And 2006 with Andy Cook and Tim Woodman again. They tested with neurotics, and basically they even tested how precisely they were susceptible to or prone to ironic errors. And the highly neurotic group, they showed a high, or they are susceptible to ironic errors than their counterparts.
Okay, that's an area of
so
interesting area of
personality has also impact. But expertise generally, they have more resilience in terms of, especially in our case, they have been trained from their early stage, and they have been competed, like they have been in competition for many years, and the tradition itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
generally
they develop that, and of course the physiological arousal. There are many factors, of course. We cannot say,
Yeah, so they developed attentional strategies. They've probably developed self-regulatory strategies. They need less attention on the task itself because it's automatic, so which gives them more the illusion that they've got more attentional resources when probably they haven't. But because they've acquired the task, they have more resources to allocate. Okay. I think we've got about 20 minutes left, so we're going to go kind of rush through these last few questions. The linguistics of this. So I think I look at the studies and sometimes we have don't miss, other times we'll have don't shoot left. What do you think about how these instructions are framed, and how might you alleviate these negative effects?
I mean,
because some biased attention. That don't miss to me, I would go, okay, what have I got to do not to miss? I would think, right, make sure I get my head over the ball, make sure I would start to reinvest, whereas don't shoot left would bias my attention probably to left or to right if it's ironic or overcompensation. I think this takes me back to the theoretical issue of reinvestment. And so what do you think about these instructions and the lack of standardization across studies?
The intention to control this don't or negative, according to the theory, it backfires. But in real penalty shooting, for example, even though you say don't miss or you instruct yourself, still there are many unpredictable things. For example, the the thoughts of the goalkeeper. It's different. You can't. There are many circumstances to consider, but negative instructions, they affect our behavior in a negative way. There are research showing, even not from the ironic perspective, but from general psychology or sports psychology. For example, negative self-talk. We have so it affects our behavior. But when it comes to, for example, the positive one, I mean, is that the one that specifically? Sorry, I'm just zooming.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, in terms of using a positive cues or positive instructions, there are also research that can also give you self-regulation. Even I have also conducted in 2017 in extreme heat conditions using a motivational positive self-talk that can give you a very good regulation and good performance.
Yeah.
But in terms of ironic error or in terms of ironic process, the don'ts are the most the enemies for performance or for generally. For example, if you say don't, you are in the process of quitting a cigarette and thoughts of, like you are on the way to stop smoking, and thoughts of suppressing thoughts of cigarette will lead you to that activates you to smoke.
That's intuitive.
Yeah, especially in depressive environment or stressful or in high cognitive or situation. So linguistically, like we tend to give, negativities. We love. Even Cote, I think a French researcher, he has done, he's a coach, and they concluded they conducted a survey and they found 95% of coaches, they use negative verbal or non-verbal instructions.
Yeah.
And even in kids, in a family, in a parenting situation, for example, I give to my kids, don't do that, don't. Yeah. I use more, don't. And it's a kind of, linguistically, it's a more natural thing or a human thing.
I think playing around with these instructions is a way to differentiate between the theoretical aspects of attentional control and self-focused. I think don't miss will induce a reinvestment, which you could measure. Yeah. And I think don't shoot left would induce attentional control deficits and distraction. So I think the different types of instructions and how they are phrased will bias attention in one way or the other. And I think that would be pretty nice research to look at. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to this one. Okay, many athletes and coaches use self-talk strategies under pressure. How can your findings on ironic processing inform practical guidelines? What can we do with the things that you've shown in your thesis to help and protect performers against ironic errors? Beyond positive instructions, what kind of things could we do?
This is very important. It has important implications to coaches, even athletes, whether they generate self-talk. It's common to use self-talk during competitions or even coaches. So instead of telling them, athletes, what not to do, it's better to tell them, what they can't do. And recently there is a research that here our colleague defended his thesis here, dissertation on Christiania. Let them learn or let them fail, or learning by failure, testing, instead of telling them instructing them, or don't do this, like bend your arm, or don't do this. Instead of that, giving them a positive
Okay, what else?
instructions.
Positive instructions is one. Any others?
Yeah, of course, but care must be taken sometimes, because in Olaf Bing's 2006 paper, even the instructions that you give, a positive instruction, if it contains the things that they avoid, if it holds,
Right.
the hold itself, then you have to be, for example, pass the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper is, you have to avoid that one.
Yeah. Sounds like distractions.
Yeah, it's a distraction. So we have to take care when
Yeah.
we formulate the instructions that doesn't distract.
Okay, these
Yeah.
effects only come about generally in high cognitive load. So what could you do as a coach?
It's a good question. And during high performance
High
settings,
anxiety, so like relaxation strategies might be effective, or something like that, biofeedback, or I don't know. But cognitive load seems to be a modulating factor in this.
I mean, generally, there are many ways, many strategies that you can coach, but still, there is a paper also by Maxwell as well, 2006. Just to add, I will come back. Even the mere mentioning of errors or mistakes, it backfires. So even when you give feedbacks, this is all about just the use of positive instruction. But you can use different kind of strategies, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation, even acceptance. What is this? The new, I forgot this one. The mindfulness, for example.
Yeah, okay,
There's a mindfulness,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
this is what the literature says. But we don't have from my research. We didn't test this because it's very, we don't have that intervention studies, too many studies.
Okay.
And we are tired of, or not tired of, but we don't have theory matched or based interventions. That's
Okay.
also another
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But they say, even Wegener himself, he has listed how to interrupt ironic error. Breathing, for example, breathing is one technique, and unload the load.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Make the load very low, and resting, sleep. There are many things he mentioned in 2011 paper, but unless it is tested that much with the ironic process theory, then still it is just like a suggestion.
Okay. So, we're not going to do this one. Oh, it's interesting in your talk earlier that you said, and probably I quote, you should make sure that you control for these confounding variables. All of them confounding variables there relate to or influence heart rate variability, which you measured. So my question is, how even drinking water can affect heart rate variability. So how did, there was no mention of this in your thesis at all, so how did you do it? And if you didn't do it, what implications might that have on your findings?
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing this into my attention. We didn't consider all this before testing the athletes.
Yeah.
That is a confounding factor. And even some of them, they came right after the training. It's intensive training with skiing. And, like I, as a researcher, main researcher, I watch them while they are shaking even.
Yeah.
So this is a confounding factor.
Yeah, definitely.
So the implication is future studies should consider, even though we have we used a rigorous method to improve the ironic process studies in our study, but still there are many things I missed.
Because you found differences in cognitive anxiety, didn't you?
It is.
But
We
no
found
differences
we
in
found
this, and that's
in
probably-
both cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you'd expect marginally higher heart rates potentially, but
yeah, but that is also influenced by individual differences.
yeah. So we'd expect expert performers.
Experience performance, and it is a novel task. And the good thing is they say that they have never done like this before, because that they train in a real training settings.
Yeah.
So it's novel, and it's okay to be to have that cognitive anxiety. And the second study 3, experiment 2, we found it aligns with our hypothesis, but the first experiment we didn't expect that one.
Yeah.
But that was confounded by their trait anxiety, and there is a theoretical foundation that says trait anxiety can affect the state anxiety.
So would you say that this measurement and the heart rate variability data that you got from this measurement is is a limitation of your research?
Of course, there are limitations. We didn't consider this, but despite that, the results show that how they are resilient to a stressful situation. And I watched them literally.
Yeah.
And when they shoot, they take a breath. One breath per shot.
Yeah.
And this is, I asked them at the debriefing, and they said, "You have been breathing." They said they didn't know. They don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is automatically inbuilt.
Yeah.
So that gives them calmness.
So how does that breathing? I was going to ask you this question earlier, but but since you brought it up, how does that deep breathing and that type of strategy, how does that influence heart rate variability?
It influences in a positive way. We have discussed early in the morning, especially the vagal tank theory says when you breathe, faster, that influences the sympathetic drive. But when you take that slow, deep breath, then it enhances the parasympathetic vagal tone that enhances heart rate variability.
So what's the neurophysical mechanism behind that?
What do you say?
So what's the neurophysiological
mechanism? So they don't panic, or they are well focused and stable.
Okay.
And then we have seen from the results they performed high shooting accuracy.
Yeah. So the deep breathing influences the parasympathetic nervous system.
But still, we didn't measure that one.
Yeah.
But theoretically at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So measuring respiration could have been really, really cool for your experiments. But yeah, you can only do so much, can't you, in research? Yeah. Particularly when you've got elite athletes and you really are at the beck and call of when they can do stuff. So
yeah, and even I was surprised. We tested them in a dim light because for visibility.
Yeah. And
few of them they miss even the bullets, and they take it and without stress.
Yeah.
You have 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And even they swap the magazine without even in the dark.
Yeah.
So that means this heart rate variability, even the breathing, gives you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a training, but that is a speculation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, final couple of questions from me. We're coming to the end of time anyway. So I think we've kind of alluded to, and I've probably given you some ideas, hopefully, of what is next. But if I was to say, okay, Khelifa, I've got funding here for 3 years for a PhD student. You can be the main supervisor. How would you see them? What are the next steps in this research if you had that opportunity?
Thank you for this opportunity, and the future study, if they want to continue, or if Wegener's theory should progress in this area, first thing we need to integrate it with the well-established self-focused and distraction-based theories. So that can give us very good insight to explain why people choke under pressure, one. And the other thing is, I think, including myself, my research, it's a shaky methodological approach. We need to move with randomized controlled trials and very stringent, approach, and of course, taking the overcompensation errors phenomenon into. So, of course, sometimes, I designed it a randomized control trial, but situation doesn't allow you. But wherever there is a possibility, then randomized control trial in the lab. Otherwise, the field, the training, it's going to give us more insight in real situation, including working memory capacity. That is the area where it's a missing area in this field. Nobody has tested it. And fatigue. There is only one study, Wegener himself, using a brick, 2.2 gram brick. But, when your mental gets fatigued, then we'll see whether, you are tended to do ironic errors. So still, nobody has ventured this area.
Yeah.
So there is a potential areas to improve and contribute to the pressure performance literature.
Yeah, I think so too. And we started the presentation, and my questioning asked from the start, asking you to, what was your motivation going forward? Well, I'm going to just go here now, looking back retrospectively. I know you've had some tough times with COVID and stuff like that. So, what have you learned generally from doing this PhD?
Resilience.
Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah.
These two are very important. I mean, I faced I can't just, But the thing is, the resilience and the training itself.
Yeah.
When I just evaluate now, people might think that, everybody has PhD nowadays and this and that. But the thing is, this, I'm not just buttering, but this training that I've received is an amazing training. In terms of, it's not only for the academic, it makes me ready for other organizations, your analytic skill, writing skill, and there are a number of skills, presentation skills, and more importantly, I learned, from this retrospective, I mean, when I think, I learned to be quiet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a good one.
Yeah, it is, because there are many gray areas that I don't know, and it's good to not to know.
And I think you've demonstrated a lot of them skills today with your presentation and your lecture this morning. So you're probably glad to know that that's the end of my question. And again, congratulations on a really nice thesis and a really nice, friendly, but critical conversation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks to the opponent and to the candidate. Now we will have a short break, and it's some refreshments and coffee outside, and we will be back here at 5 minutes to 3. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Now we start with the second opponent, Tom Haugen from University of Agder. The floor is yours, together with Khelifa. Welcome up, Khelifa.
Thanks, Åge. First of all, I would like to thank the university for providing me with this opportunity. 12 years after I was here defending my own thesis. So I'm really excited, and thank you to Greg and Live for good cooperation. But most importantly, congratulations, Khelifa. It has been really interesting reading your work, listening to you today. And I have learned a lot, and especially the conversation you had with the first opponent was impressive from both of you. Also, my slides are not that impressive when I looked at Greg's presentation, so that's where we start. But I think you will experience quite different questions. Maybe I will challenge you a little bit of some overall questions, but we'll see. But as you may be aware of, or at least I'm telling you now, I'm really interested in the choice of words and linguistics and so on. So I sometimes start with the presentation by declaring my role or our role, because in the formal papers we are appointed as opponents, and in my dictionary that means to set against or oppose, maybe like a competitor. So if we were competing on a soccer field, there would be only one winner, probably. And that's kind of a strange choice of words for this role, I think. Maybe there could be a new rector considering changing it, but nevertheless, I think we could kind of change this role a little bit, because I think I speak for both of us. We would rather be this kind of critical friend, showing that maybe we can disagree, maybe we can challenge each other in a way that we all develop and learn more. So that's kind of the aim of this work. So that's where we start, and we'll see. Starting really, really broad, and maybe you've already mentioned something that could be relevant, but the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what is it with this work or this process that you find the most proud in? What are you most pleased with?
Thank you for this opportunity, and for supplementing for this critical friend. I was also asked, I said opponent. What is opponent means? I got from my colleagues, from other friends. So it's the right call for the new rector. Well, what I'm most pleased with so far, or with my work, is the systematic review that we have conducted, the first systematic review. We together conducted this study in a very transparent, less author-biased, and highly criticizing the methodological and conceptual aspect of this area. This is what I am proud of with my colleagues and collaborators, and we published that one in a high, reputable, high impact factor journal in the International Review of Sport and Exercise Ecology. That is, and of course, taking the shortcomings or the limitations and addressing that into experimental studies. That is also another thing which I'm proud of, but I wish I could have done it in a different way. But there are factors, time factor, COVID, and yeah.
Oh, interesting. I commend you for all the aspects that I would probably say that you should be proud and you should acknowledge your work. And you said you should definitely have done something differently. And for my students, I often use the magic wand experiment. So I discuss this, what would be the cues. But in this case, I should be maybe we can use the magic font. So let's say if you have no constraints regarding restriction of time or money or maybe ethical consideration, what would you have done differently? You started.
A very good question. If given if there is no constraints, what that you mentioned, I wish I could have done randomized control trials. That is the gold standard, so that even we could come up with the clear relationship between pressure and ironic errors, and that is one thing. And of course, if I had the opportunity, I would have done it from different NTG, the Norwegian elite academy. We have like 7, 8, and Wovang. So instead of a homogeneous group, so we could have collected more data, so that we could have increased the effect size, or at least the power of our study. That is, we are limited by many factors.
When you say, I understand, I think we may discuss the sample in a bit, if I can choose, and I can. So, but when you say you would like to do a randomized controlled trial, okay? But then if I ask you on
the personal
from the top of your head, what would you, is it the control group, or is it the randomization? What's missing in your work? Would you be a little bit more specific, what you could have done?
Yeah, the randomization is what we said from the beginning. The design was including the working memory capacity and the personality. Based on the personality, the early personality data, then we could have classified individuals to groups. For example, high working memory, low working memory, and then we could have identified which factor is the most,
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, one of the things could be to have maybe bigger resources and actually test for moderating factors on the individual level.
Yeah,
okay. So you mentioned
to supplement that, for example, we conducted now, even I forget to mention that one to Greg, we now, it's in preparation, we conducted the heart rate variability biofeedback training and a randomized control trial. Those people who are susceptible to ironic error first. First, we found it's two studies. First, those people who are susceptible to ironic or who did in the pentathlon, Olympic pentathlon, and then we provided them, or we give them a heart rate variability training for 6 weeks for the experimental group, but the control group didn't receive, and that is also another way to test it. So the intervention, it looks, it is a kind of caveat. For example, the under high cognitive load condition, they got minor or negligible error, even with intervention that it's a kind of a caveat. They found also minimum or negligible ironic error. So it's very difficult to say. So I would have done it in a very rigorous way in terms of research design, if it was randomized.
I like your considerations on in hindsight we could have and should have and so on, but I really want to commend you for doing what seems to be thorough and very thoughtful experiments. And actually, I think, in my opinion, that type of research, at least within Scandinavia, in sports psychology, that kind of experimental research is lacking. There's room for way more, not only on these theories or these areas, but what we should. And you have made a prime example of how we can conduct well-developed experiments. So,
thank you.
So,
I didn't know that.
However, there's always something to nitpick in as all the studies. And one of the things I am both curious and maybe a little bit concerned about, this is excerpt from your work. I think this is from the synopsis of your thesis. You describe these participants as elite athletes or elite biathletes. And that's kind of a theme throughout. I think actually your title is something about elite.
Implication to elite athletes, yeah.
Well,
implications to elite athletes. Yeah,
implications. So you kind of just adjusted that a little bit. And then somewhere, I think that's in the discussion maybe, of your synopsis, I think that's the first time the semi-elite perspective is presented in your synopsis. And the paper, is it paper 3? Paper 3, that's there you're explicitly calling them semi-elite. So my point is, these labels, they vary a little bit, but in this section here, I think if I read it correctly, you argue that according to Swan, these participants are semi-elite. However, according to McKay, they are probably elite. Is that?
Yeah.
Did I interpret you correctly?
That's true. But I didn't find where I put semi-elite in the dissertation. This one is used in the paper. We used it in the paper.
Semi-elite.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
That is true. I got you.
Yes. Paper three used the semi-elite. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
However, I'm confused, or I quibble a little bit about the difference between these two. And in my opinion, you may be, maybe you could convince me that they are elite?
Yeah.
If that's what you're meaning?
Yeah.
No?
That's a very good question, and the debate is still, it's a hot debate topic, elite, and we reported this one because we use the SWAN's classification of expertise during manuscript preparation. But when we get into the NTG mission and vision, these participants are selected. They are not coming from, they have a requirement. Their mission is very high, and the tradition is different in that city itself. What is the Shishiting or
Biathlon.
Yeah, and to give you example, the king of biathlon, for example, Einar Bjørndalen, he's a student of a former student of NTG, and if you go, there are if I give you information, even only in Beijing 22 Olympic, there are 4 students from that NTG. They got gold medal. So this eliteness is, I like the Mackay and colleagues' way of classification, because the rigidity of by calculating this, I'm not devaluing the contribution of SWAN. It's a great contribution. We have to use it because it helps us to replicate studies, and it's very good. But the Mackay and colleagues classification considers the traditions, the culture. It's more comprehensive. So, looking at the vision of the school, and of course, I agree with you to classify 16 years old athletes as elite is kind of not right. But for example, I forgot Marit Røiseland, Marte, eller from Agder.
Røiseland, Olsbu, yeah.
Yeah, she took, for example, her, youth championship first VM when she was 17. She is still the top of in women's. So what I mean is, even there are cases in other sports, in gymnastics, for example, there are elite athletes at the age of 15 or 16. But I agree totally. I could have provided or provide explanation to why these disparities or why these differences in the literature and in the thesis.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you prepared a paper, the paper 3, and you used the framework of SWAN, and that kind of got accepted through the review process. But then during that time, you figured out that, well, I am actually comfortable that this population or group, because you're probably interested in more than elite biathletes, but this group of participants are indeed elite.
And to add you to that is, during even debriefing time, almost like most of them, they went to the youth national championship and what is this, VM and something. So
okay, maybe that will be relevant because I'm not letting you go quite yet, because I apologize for all you non-Norwegian speakers or readers, because this slide is only in Norwegian, because that's what I found. So that's the inntaksreglement, the rule of appointment for the school, the academic program that these are attending. And here it says prestasjons- og ferdighetsnivået til utøverne høyt I forhold til gjennomsnittsnivået I Norge. And then they have kind of a scoring regime. There's skills and competence, points from 1 to 6 times 3. And then there's results and performance level, points 1 to 6 times 2. And then there are academic grades. It's 4
Times 1, yeah.
times 1. So that's kind of the scoring. And I wonder, what would Swan say and what would McKay say? Because I struggle a little bit because obviously there's a potential, and we can argue that Ole Einar Bjørndalen was a prime because obviously they have potential, but it's not a given that that potential is fulfilled. And when we label someone elite, then we kind of define that the proficiency is at a particular level. So just as a supporting slides, I have these two references, and as I can see, you use the classification semi-elite from Swan, and he explicitly write, therefore it's difficult to suggest that these athletes are fully elite, but then you argue that McKay is a better classification framework, and elite international level is actually top 4 to 300 in world rankings, not age adjusted as far as I can see. And then you have the highly trained national level. That's actually or academy programs competing at national level, achievement with the and so on and so on. So I'm curious, could you once more argue why McKay would classify your sample as elite?
It's a very critical question. I think like this is the tier that they classified, or they classified elites McKay, but in the discussion section of McKay, still there is unsettled, or there are issues in terms of classifying. It's very difficult, as you said, even including the Swans, but keeping the participants or athletes' tradition, culture, and a number of hours they spend in the sport, that should be also seen or included. And to supplement that, there is a new study that came in 2024, last year, I think, from the Swedish Gymnasium Academy. And the biathlon, in the biathlon itself, now they changed even the level of competition into elite. It is not based on age. Rather, it is based on the number of participation or hours that you spend, and that give you the ranking to participate in the international biathlon something, So there is a change. There is a trend to change this classification. But I totally agree. It's a kind of controversy with the Norwegian way of classifying, and even with this one. But in that environment, when I tested, these people definitely they are more than, their skill is amazing. But as you say, in terms of these literatures, and from my personal perspective, this classification shouldn't be that kind of rigid, But still, like I made. That's right. I made two different classification techniques, which is not convincing. I totally agree with you.
Okay, because the reason why I hesitated was both Swan and this McKay and also others, they kind of ask for some consistency in the literature and some clarifications,
Yeah.
and maybe more transparency. So it's kind of, well, I kind of agree. And if a brief thought experiment, if you were to do your systematic review now, I guess your papers would be included, or would you have?
They would reject it.
They would reject it.
Because of the disparity.
No, but if you were to do an assessment of your own papers, how would you classify them? Because you extract data on participant level in your systematic review.
Yeah, if I include them, then I will use my case high trend, or tier 3.
Yeah, because that was my point. Because in the systematic review, you actually use highly trained and elite as two of the group, and novice and something else perhaps. But there you use different terminology. Actually, highly trained in accordance with McKay, and I was wondering maybe, semi-elite. So there are a little bit of confusion surrounding this. So maybe we could have received a brief discussion or clarification, because the papers are done and so on. But there's also one more thing that I would dwell upon, and that's because you write this, I think, both in a paper and in the thesis. Given the elite biathletes' rigorous training regimen, impressive number of hours, participation in competition at national, regional, regional is something else for me, but that it doesn't matter, international and world levels along with their success. But what is their success? What is their, how many of them? Is this one individual outperforming all the others? Or because one of the issues are transparency. So let's say, could you have done something to convince me that they are in fact elite?
At least this, the 5 hour per day participation is that is in their schedule from the NTGI law. So that is even according to the new, the one that I told you, the number of participation in training, and they are these athletes are also they belong to different biathlon clubs beside the NTG or the study. So this is only the training hours in the school, and besides they have also other training. So I think that gives them more resilience, more skills, more to the level of, like, why not? They are elite. They can reach to the elite level because of this. But I didn't. That's the difficulty to analyze the debriefing, because we don't have any structure. For example, it's not structured or semi-structured interview, you know. But at least, you know, like from the study 3 experiment 1 and 2, almost like 6 and 4 participants, they have been in the use VM, use VM now.
Yeah. Okay. So World
but
Cup
to
level?
generalize it is not transparent. It's not. It's not right way.
No, because I have no clue. Is it everyone? Is it just one of them? Is it two? Meaning that information about how many of these potentially competing at an international or world, I'm not sure. Yeah, that would be informative. So, and maybe a stronger argument for the choice of elite, even though they are mostly underaged. And in a sport, you probably need 10 to 15 years to reach expertise. But in my opinion, your research would not be less relevant or less important if they were defined as something else than elite. Yeah, that's an extremely interesting group, obviously skilled at what they're doing and skilled at similar tasks as you are providing them with. But what if we call them just well-trained? Would anything change in your work? Either the hypothesis driven from more or less the theory, or did you design the study in a different way? Or would you have expected, that's kind of connected to the hypothesis, would you have expected different results?
It's a very good question. Even if we classified them like less expert or novices, even highly trained, and the results wouldn't change. It would be the same kind of performance. They are high shooting accuracy and with minimum or with no ironic error. So this classification, I totally agree. It gives the thesis and the reliability in question, not to clarifying these things. But as you said, even if you make them novice, still they didn't do any ironic error. It doesn't make any difference.
No, but you wouldn't have designed your studies differently if you had...
I think, this is the trend in the research. If I didn't even mention that, the level of the expertise, as you said, it's good for the consistency and the replication, but, there are studies that didn't mention at all. And we provided even, we maintained the ethical aspect, but we provided as a supplementary document about these athletes, clubs, and how they structured their training and competition regimen. So the result wouldn't be different.
No, obviously not. But I was thinking maybe you have specifically designed a study for elite athletes, and then kind of square pegs in a round hole. But if I understand you correctly, that's kind of on the side. So your projects, your studies, your experiments would be equally interesting. And that is good to hear. Okay. And you said something about ethics, so that's nice, because I found in your synopsis on page 11, you say that chapter 3 presents the ethical consideration, and probably chapter 3 provides the ethical consideration, but when I read this, I think maybe I interpret this as more kind of a data protection and anonymity and so on. And ethical consideration is probably not the same as ethical discussion or reflection, but I kind of miss some kind of reflection around the ethics of your research, and considering you've done everything right with the approvals from all the controlling institutions, so I guess that this is all right. But on hindsight, what kind of ethical reflection could be relevant? And reflection, not just considerations, if there is a difference. We'll ask the...
For example, not sharing their data to a third party or to anyone. That is an ethical consideration. That only for example, when they ask, then, their data must be protected. And the other thing is when, for example, we told them that this is at the end of the brief. This is not, actually doesn't measure your ability, or it's not your performance. It is an artificial condition, so that they didn't take it that, they didn't carry that anxiety and that pressure to their performance and to their home. That is also
afterwards.
Yeah, afterwards, yeah. So we did that one. So yeah.
One of the things I'm thinking about is that obviously most of them are probably, since the mean age is 17, I guess most of them are underage. And also you...
sorry to mention.
You actually collaborate with their school. So you kind of get access through the school, and I kind of think of there should be probably some kind of potential power issues connected to who invites them and why do you get access, and so you get my drift.
Yeah. That is what we did with my supervisor, and we had 2 virtual meetings. Even there was one participant who's gonna reach to age 16, but she was 15 plus few days. So we asked consent from the parents. That is also another ethical issue, and we discussed with their coach and the school board, and that they give us that authority. We didn't, we informed them properly, and it's based on voluntarism. So
obviously you have had approval for all these procedures, so I'm not particularly worried, but I think maybe if there was some teacher or coach that asked me if I wanted to join a research project, and I had a relationship with this teacher or coach, I'm not sure how voluntarily it would be for me as a young athlete. So it's kind of these aspects, what kind of things were done to ensure that it is indeed a voluntary participation, for example. That could be one issue. So that's kind of some of the evaluation of potential harm or risk. And then there was this cover story. I call it cover story. It's probably kind of a scenario. And you remind us, why did you have this cover story, just to be sure?
This is there is a literature supporting this to create pressure through social evaluation, and there are many, like hundreds of studies. Social evaluation can create pressure, and even this one, I was like surprised that some of them, they said, really? They said, really? Do the coaches evaluate this? So that means, like culturally, maybe this is not right, but like this is an artificial. That's why at the end of the experiment debriefing, we taught them this. No, this is an experiment.
Yeah, I have probably done worse things to my participants than this, but reminding ourselves they are potentially underage, and you actually explicitly tell them that they can be punished when not perform. I think that warrants kind of a
care.
Obviously, you've done you've been careful because you have the approval, but maybe it warrants some kind of reflection on how this may affect or may not affect, and what kind of procedures did we ensure was taking place, and follow up if someone had concerns and afterwards and so on. So that would be I think that would be valuable for us as readers.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. From one thing to another, a totally different thing, but I will commend you also for pre-registering the systematic review. Why did you do that?
It is a trend one, and it is also transparency. And the other thing is it's ownership.
Yeah.
It's going to give you ownership.
Yeah, so it's a part of the open science
Framework.
yeah, so that's a good thing, and we are going to talk about the open science part. But I have highlighted one of the your co-authors here, so that's kind of interesting because I easily get curious. So the pre-registration, there's one main author and there's 2 supervisors, and that's pretty logical. And then there's a published paper with 1 researcher included, and I didn't know that scholar myself, but I looked him up and saw that obviously that was probably an expert in the field. Can you tell me a little about the process and his role?
If you click this link, then it doesn't show you definitely because this is it's the collaborator is
noticed.
It's not noticed. It is, but it is available
As a
collaborator.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
you can't find the full information at the top in the Prospero. But Recep is an expert. He did his PhD in ironic process with Tim Woodman and Andy Cook in Bangor University. So during COVID time, because it was impossible to conduct experiments, so contacted him, and he was willing to collaborate, and it was a great journey.
And I really like it because you show that not only can you collaborate with your supervisors as kind of a prerequisite to be here today, but you can also establish networks and collaborate, and that's probably one of the most important things because research is not that often done in solitude. So I think that's a good thing. However, this co-author of yours is actually quite substantially included in the systematic review as a contributor for the original papers reviewed. So, and that tells me that you have teamed up with an expert in this field, and you have a great team around you. But there are no potential conflict of interest. No? I have a question. So, how was it possible conflict? Because my claim is there could be a conflict of interest, even though it's totally normal for experts in one field to do systematic reviews and including their own work, performing performing some state-of-the-art knowledge on their own field, so it's not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
However, your systematic review includes some screening and some evaluation of the papers, and also, as you write yourself, a narrative synthesis of the papers. So I'm curious, because I note that actually the second author has a kind of a central role in the extraction and the analysis process in that systematic review. Isn't that correct?
I mean,
Obviously,
partly, yeah.
Partly, okay.
Yeah, but I can explain this. It's a very good, valid point, by the way. We used the RIAN net and web-based filtering systematic review tool. And we tried at least the double-blinded screening, inviting reshape. But we couldn't do that. He was involved in the data extraction, but not the methodological qualities.
Okay.
I mean, you know, like I'm the first author. As the first author, I even criticized his methodological approach, like without any bias, according to my capacity. And Henrik, or the fourth author, was considered as if a critical friend or checking whether these methodologies are right or not. But I mean, as you said, it's not uncommon to use this kind of analysis in the systematic review. And the other problem is the area is very thin and very small. There are not much you can synthesize. So that is one factor.
But it's interesting because I think, and you've probably done everything by the book. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but maybe I would be more convinced if I read that the second author or any potential authorship would be so that maybe he can review the other papers and some of the other co-authors had done those. I think that would be maybe a little bit more. Well,
but you know, like including, you know, even though he is the first author, there are big names in these papers. You know, like Tim Woodman and Andy Cook. You know, they have been for almost 3 decades in this research. So. Sometimes it is tempting, you know, just to drop. But also you have to go through, it's not a personal choice. You have to go through the guidelines of the systematic review. You can't, and we dropped a number of papers. That's also a limitation. That has also relevance. But, you know, like we have to cut them.
And I think more or less the data extraction is one thing, and then there's kind of the narrative review of the, because that's kind of, at least it's potentially more subjective.
It is potentially subjective, but we included the statistics with the effect size. You know, you can check the table 3. I think, in this paper, and methodologically. And the other thing is we check the synthesis without meta-analysis by Campbell. It is a very comprehensive evaluation of your work that we have also submitted to the journal. And the page 2020, the Prisma checklist. It's a big checklist, So
and I tried to find something in the pre-registration and the paper, because I thought, well, they must have done something. But as far as I can read it, it was very in line with what was so. And also I found a note where the pre-registration was different from the actual work. So that's because there's a misconception about the pre-registration. You're not allowed to do changes. That's not true. You just have to be transparent and open and explain why. And so that's obviously a big strength. So going back, that's why I'm a little bit curious about
but I really appreciate, you know, like if you go to the methodological evaluation, which we supplemented in table 3, like each and every paper using the mixed method appraisal tool. That is, I mean, it was the best satisfactory work that our team done. Like with less bias, like author's bias, and more transparent reporting, despite, as you see, we have most of the papers are from Gorgulu or Reshape, but still we criticized even these papers. So, yeah.
So, I need to skip some questions because I want to talk about the open science here is also the pre-registration once more.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, wow, you're in the front, because most academics, well, at least things are changing, but maybe we should pre-register all our work always. And that got me thinking, why was not the experiments pre-registered? Any reason?
It's a very good question because of like maybe you may know how the time was very because after the COVID we got a little bit access 2022 to get the data collected, and then my time was almost over to finish my PhD. Then registering but my plan is to after this PhD I will put all this raw data into the open science framework. So that also increases transparency. But
okay, so now you're
the pre-registration is it takes time to go through and write. I didn't have time.
Okay, so because I find it really, it's understandable because it takes tremendous time, but then you already got it lined up, so if you can succeed. So the pre-registrations of experiments would be a big benefit, but there was probably not time. And then there's the data availability, because I wonder why not just provide them.
I mean, that is also to enhance or increase the transparency. If they are doubting, then they can go through even the analysis and everything. Have to be. I mean, so that you can increase your reputation and who you are as a researcher, but within the limit, within the Norwegian data protection system, as long in that frame.
Yeah. Obviously we must anonymize the data and so on and so forth. But I hope that this becomes the norm, that all studies should be pre-registered, all data should be available at all time and not just upon request. And in my opinion, you have made a big step in the right direction, or at least in an open science framework perspective. And then there are some issues that we...
Thank you.
But I'm not best at this myself either, but I can tell you. Should we... I'm curious, because when I use this link for the preprint, actually, there's a totally different paper. No, it's not a totally different paper, but it's a slightly different paper. So the paper 2 is not published yet, but there is a preprint version, and you link to it, but then there's a different title. So I'm just curious, because now the title actually reads a psychophysiological pilot study. So now the...
That's a very good question, because of methodological issues and the sample size. Whenever we send this to publications, there are rejections, but very good rejections with comments and helpful comments. So most of them, they agree because of the power of the paper. They said that you need to at least report it as a pilot test. And now, for your information, we got 22 pages of review, very interesting review, which I'll do in a couple of days. Very interesting. I have never seen such kind of quality review with experts. So that is because of, you know.
So version 6 and version 7 of this would probably be... Okay.
And for your information, from now on, if you click this link, this one in the Psych ARCs in Open Science Framework, it's not accessible because they have influx of more preprints, so they want to, you know, it's crashed their system.
Okay, yeah,
so
I noticed
they will
today.
come back in 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sample size, so maybe we should skip this, or would you comment on this? Well, I can comment on it because Daniel Lakens is a psychologist from the Netherlands. He has a great paper on sample size justifications, and he has 6 possible justifications.
I follow him. This guy, he's a great guy. Yeah.
So. And there's different ways of justifying your sample size, but the main point of his paper, as far as I interpret it, is that you should make a justification.
Yeah.
So it's kind of no matter what, make a justification. So what's your justification?
In our case, you know, like the priority was not a choice because it was based on a voluntary, and you know, like we were eager to get data. So, but to run a priori using a G-power was not possible. But we ran a sensitive power analysis after how many participants we would need for our paper or our research to be that powerful, our sample size. So, you know, in one paper, we needed 58 biathletes, which is impossible. So practically, I mean, you know, practically time, it was not possible.
Okay, so actually resource constraints could be one justification.
So that one, it came from, I think it's from England, from Liverpool, one reviewer. He suggested the Bayesian method. So I had to spend 3 months more. What is that?
Okay,
and then that can give you...
Regarding that, because that's kind of the saying that the Bayesian statistics, they kind of account for low sample size, but can you tell me why? Not with formulas, because then I can't understand it, but why so?
One, it gives you a good opportunity to interpret, or you don't need to depend on statistical inferences all the time. This one is going to give you some based on a prior knowledge, which you don't know, and that is one thing. The other thing is when you have a small sample issue, also it's gonna complement, but it's not a comprehensive one. It can complement the frequentist approach. So
I noticed you did that. So
especially the second study, which is not published yet. We don't have still yet a prior knowledge whether, you know, like in sports setting, like instructing participants don't do regardless of cognitive load. It has never been done. So we don't have any prior knowledge. So, and the other thing is we couldn't reject our null hypothesis. And then Bayesian analysis gave us opportunity to test the null hypothesis. So there are important. It's an important tool to.
Yeah, and I'm not claiming that you're doing it wrong in any ways, but I think maybe there's some kind of buts, and then there's maybe something that you're not getting the most out of, because the first argument would be that since we have prior information, we are kind of inject power through that prior information, but that's something's missing here. So normally we use priors by default, and they are just as little informative as the frequentist way, probably. But there's also this kind of, instead of a yes or no, there's kind of a continuum, so that's kind of where you are. But there's also the possibility to estimate certainty less than, so you can, maybe you can say, well, there's a tendency. I didn't like when you say there was a tendency, but it was not significant, because you say, well, I just disregard that it's not significant and tell the story either way, but you're kind of consistent because you say there is no ironic effects. So that's okay. But if you could say, let's say you say I'm 75% sure, wouldn't that be better than just saying there's a tendency? So there are some potentials. For example.
And the other thing is there is a rebuttal regarding the p-values. The p-hacking, why? So this can also help us to address that. That kind of.
Definitely. And then the new thing you should read up on is the base hacking, because that's equally easy as the p-hacking. So, okay. I'm just skipping everything else because I wanted to thank you. I think my time is up and more than that. So thank you and congratulations again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So thanks to the committee and the candidate for a fantastic discussion. I think we all learned a lot. And now it's maybe the most exciting part, because the examination committee will now leave the room to evaluate the dissertation and make their final decision. I ask the rest of you to stay in this room, and I will announce the committee's decision within 5 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
Du kan ikke være med. Vil du ikke være med? Jeg trodde du skulle være med. Dette er. Okay, I didn't know that.
So, the examination committee has found Khelifa Bartura's dissertation today satisfactory. The committee's conclusion is unanimous. So, on behalf of Norwegian School of Sports Sciences, I hereby award Khelifa Bartura the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Sports Sciences. Congratulations! You will receive your diploma at the ceremony in August at the start of the next academic year. And now I will ask the committee, the head of department, Lone Fristing, and the new Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, to join me in a procession out of the room. I hereby declare the disputation for completed. Thanks to all of you. Thank you.